Let's go ahead now and get to our teacher panel. I love teacher panels. I love having the opportunity to talk with educators and to learn from educators. And these three educators are spanning quite a few different grade levels and different even areas of their specialty areas, but they're really fascinating in terms of who they are as educators, who they are as STEM educators, and the contributions that they have made to basically Antelope Valley and Santa Clarita Valleys. And they've really impacted many children and families. And we're grateful to meet with them today. So, panelists, if you wouldn't mind, let's go ahead. We're going to start off with some introductions. And in your introductions, if you could please include your name, your current position, a little bit about like your school that you're working at, especially because I know a couple of you are really kind of at schools that have different models. And we want to make sure those that are on can make really good decisions about where they want their career to be. And I know that I can tell you for sure, being in the right school can make a huge difference. In addition to that, we're also hoping that you can tell us a bit about like your journey into education. So we'll just take a few minutes with each of the presenters talking for a bit, and then we'll go into some targeted questions. But why don't we go ahead? We'll start with Karen, and then we'll go to James, and then we'll go to Laura. Okay.
Hi, everyone. My name is Karen Coffey, and I currently teach at Eastside High School in East Lancaster. And our school is a public school that has just under 3,000 students. Within our public high school, we have an academy. It's a linked learning academy that focuses on biomed. And so I'm the academy coordinator for the Biomed Academy at Eastside. And our students have a program where they go from 9th to 12th grade, and they take biomed courses. They're done by Project Lead the Way. That's the curriculum that we use. In addition to taking their biomed course, which is a CTE class, they are cohorted into their academic classes as well. And they take, for example, in my class, I teach 9th grade. I teach a class called Principles of Biomedical Science, and the kids take it instead of biology. But the students that are in my class also take 9th grade honors English with a teacher who plans with me. So we do integrated lessons. For example, if we're doing an experiment in my class and gathering data, then they will learn how to write a formal lab report in their English class. He teaches them APA formatting for science, articles, etc. So the theme for biomed is basically spiraled throughout their academic courses. They also take Spanish, so they might do like a public service announcement for COVID in Spanish. They're cohorted in their math classes as well. So we're sort of a small learning community within our big, large school. This is my 25th year teaching, my 8th year at Eastside. So I started teaching right after college. I actually went to school originally to be a nurse. I have a passion for health. I saw a big smile. That's so exciting. Maybe somebody else is feeling the same as me. So I have a passion for healthcare and helping people. And so during school for nursing, I got a little bit nervous about the nursing field in general, maybe because I didn't know a lot about it. And when I was graduating from college, there was a shortage of science teachers, and my mom is a teacher. So my mom was teaching middle school at the time, and there were science positions open at her school, so I could start teaching right away. So I have a degree in life science, but I just began teaching right after graduating college, 7th grade science. So I taught middle school for 15 years and then moved to the high school, and mostly moved to the high school to teach in this program for Project Lead the Way curriculum and doing this Biomed Academy. So that's a little bit of a background. I hope I covered everything. We're in the Antelope Valley Union High School District. So there's 8 comprehensive high schools within our district, and all of our career technical ed programs are working toward being linked learning academies. And Mr. Stockdale will talk to you a little bit about his academy model at his school as well.
Outstanding. Thank you so much. James, let's head over to you.
So my name is James Stockdale. I similarly teach in the Antelope Valley High School District. This is my 18th year. I'm a little bit weird in that I haven't traveled all that far. I started at Knight High School, and I run a split schedule now where I do still work at Knight High School, but then I also work at Knight Prep Academy, which is a middle school that's attached to the high school. So I work at both, and we have So I started the Engineering Academy. It's the Digital Design and Engineering Academy at Knight High School. We are a California Partnership Academy, which means that we get funding from the state as well to help do a lot of the programs and things that we do. It's a 4-year engineering pathway, but if you really extend out to the middle school, it's a 7-year engineering pathway, because part of the reason why we started the middle school connected to the high school was to kind of expand out that access to engineering and STEM curriculum for the kids. So they start with Gateway to Technology all the way down to 6th grade, and then they continue in their engineering classes all the way through 12th grade. We try to offer the kids internships at the end and as many opportunities as we can along the way. So I started with my degree in biology, and in my first year teaching 18 years ago, I got to unwrap my classroom at Knight High School for year 1. And I was a biology teacher for 7 years. Then somewhere along the way, I can't remember exactly which year in there, the school decided that they wanted to start the engineering pathway. And so our principal came into our science department meeting and just asked, hey, are there any volunteers that would be willing to teach engineering? And so I went back to school over the summer at San Diego State and got some additional training there and started teaching digital electronics. I've also taught introduction to engineering. I've taught aerospace engineering. I've taught engineering development and design. I've taught a drone class that I helped write. I've written 4 classes for A through G approval with the UC program. I've taught an internship class. I also taught chemistry, got a credential in that. I've also been a PE teacher as needed, got that authorization added. So over my 18 years, I've worn a lot of different hats, done a lot of different programs. Some of them, well, we can get a little more into that later, but what brought me into teaching, to kind of wrap back around to what Renee was asking us, when I was in college, I knew I loved science and I knew I wanted to teach. I just wasn't sure which one. And I was actually working at a behavior modification camp for at-risk youth, and watching the way that it was done, it was just, well, I didn't name any names. We won't say. It wasn't even in this state, but it was just done really, really boring in the room that I was in. And I knew that those kids, like they liked it when we went hands-on. And so seeing the difference it made in a role as like a tutor at that time while I was in college, I realized, I think this is what I want to do. And so I got my original degree in science and then added some different authorizations to be able to do some different things over the years. And so now I'm part at the high school, part at the middle school. I go back and forth between the two, and it's a really good time.
I love that you mentioned authorizations, and I'm going to tap into this for just a minute before we go to our next panelist. You also talked about wearing multiple hats. Does that mean that you got a credential for every single one of those hats that you wore? Did you have to get like 10 different credentials, James? Or what does that mean exactly when you said that?
Sure. So my original credential is a single subject credential in biology. And so that was my degree. And so that was what I got hired under initially. The first credential I added after that was chemistry. So because I already had a single subject credential, to add an authorization to my existing credential, I had to go take the CSET in chemistry. And so at that time, you could just take the CSET, and if you passed it, sometimes there was more than one. Most subjects, actually, there's more than one. If you pass the tests, then you would fill out the form. I think it was about $100. You would send it into the state and they would add that authorization. And so your credential would be good in another area. Since that time, they've added another requirement at the state level that you still take the CSET for it, but now you have to take a methods class along with it. And so when I added, I think the last one I added was PE. So PE actually had 3 CSETs. I took all 3 of the PE CSETs, passed those, but then I had to take a class. I think the idea there is teaching PE is so different than teaching biology, for example, that they want to make sure that you understand the approach, the method to teaching that. So I took an online methods class. It was, 3 months, I think, over the summer. And then I sent the paperwork in and added that. I believe all subjects require a methods class now. I haven't added one in a couple of years, but that's my understanding.
I love though that you have, in a sense, multiple credentials though, which
Yeah.
is because a lot of times people think you go back to school to get another credential, and no, usually, maybe one class, but you're not doing
Right.
another program with you, if you're strategic about it and kind of build it. So I love that you shared that. Plus then you're employable anywhere.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. It gives you crazy flexibility, because being able to do biology classes, chemistry classes, PE classes, engineering classes, it really gives you a lot of options.
Absolutely. I had a friend who was able to teach K through 6 and then any history, or excuse me, English or bio for high school and junior high. So she was, once she moved, it was not an issue, which is great. It's great to be able to have that flexibility. Thank you so much for sharing your story. I appreciate it. Okay,
Sure.
Laura, will you tell us a little bit about you and your school? One of my favorite schools. I'm just slightly biased.
Just
I
slightly.
taught at that school a while ago, but share a little bit with us about you.
Sure, I am the which of these things is not like the others panelist. My name is Laura Franzel, and I'm a 6th grade teacher at Live Oak Elementary School. I have never taught at high school, and I bow down to those who do, especially, wow, James, that's a lot of hats. You are that Dr. Seuss book, for sure. I am a multi-subject credential. I do hold a master's in educational technology. I am the gate lead here at Live Oak, and I also coach the first Lego League Lego Robotics team, go Leverbots and Spotbots. Super excited about that. I got my start way different than most. I am, well, I will say it on camera here. I am 49 years old and only in my 2nd year of teaching. So yeah, I have a little pause there. I went to school for my bachelor's, got my bachelor's in political science and human communication eons ago, and thought I would be an attorney, and went and had kids, and then from having kids never became an attorney, worked in the sports and entertainment world forever and a day, and then decided from volunteering in my kids' classes, this is kind of like what I like to do. I like being at the school. I like the vibe. I like the environment. I like being around all these cool people. And I like helping to shape these young minds. The school I work at is Title I, and it is almost beyond Title I. Like a lot of our demographic, I have kids in my class that don't have a book at home. And I know that when they go home, they have no support whatsoever. So the learning stops when they leave my classroom, and that breaks my heart every day. So I go above and beyond whatever every day to do what I can for these kids. I started off as like I said, a parent volunteer in my kids' classrooms, became a kinder aide because I had my bachelor's. We were laid off due to budget cuts. And that's when everybody came and approached me and said, you need to get your sub credential. And I was like, okay, got my sub, started subbing, realizing what this is all really about and getting more of an idea of the teacher why. And then that kind of became my why when I was walking to lunch one day after subbing and got barreled down by a parent who all she wanted to know was where the party room was. And I looked at her and I said, well, this is a school. We don't have a party room. And she's carrying a stack of pizzas. And she's no, my class party. It's in the party room, the one with no carpet. And I went, oh, that's the science lab. And she looked at me like I was speaking a foreign language. And I suddenly realized we had a science lab that was not being used for science. It was a party room. And that just threw me into a tailspin. As she went off to the party room, I went to the principal, who's still my principal, and said, if I create an NGSS aligned, curriculum aligned, meet with teachers every month for TK through 6 STEM-based science program, will you let me run it? And on the spot, she said, yes. And her next breath was, but there's no money for it. And I went, okay, challenge accepted. So here we are years later, and I've been able to find, just through donations and grants and Renee being my champion, my little, Jimmy Cricket on my shoulder, telling me you can do it, you can do it, you can do it. And now we have 3D printers and we have a fully running STEM program. And I get to teach these kids who would never, ever have this experience, all of these amazing things because of all of this. So during the pandemic, I knew I couldn't just sit and do nothing. And again, Renee and several other people who, again, are voices in my ear all the time, said, go get your teaching credential. And I said, okay. So I got my multi-subject teaching credential and I got my master's in ed tech, and I've never looked back. And it was the best decision I could have made, because now I get to every day, like I say, I get to play science. I am the science teacher for 6th grade. I teach all 3 classes, so it's about 76 students. And it's what I love. I literally get to come to school and play every day. So I try to incorporate STEM in everything I do, even if it's the smallest little thing. We're not a fully high tech. We are every day striving to get that makerspace up and running, and striving every day to get all new sorts of cool, fun things. I just went to a maker fair and got to play with all the toys, and I now have a laundry list waiting for some sort of funding to come in to be able to play with all the things with all the kids. But it's when you see these kids and you know that they will never experience something even as simple as making a pulley system to bring bricks up a hill when they're studying ancient pyramids in Egypt in 6th grade. And okay, how do you get these bricks up to the top of a pyramid, and they have to do a lever or pulley system? They've never done anything like that, and they never will, and outside of school. So if I can just impart any of that with them, even something simple as playing with Legos. Some of these kids have never played with Legos before, and that just throws me when I think about that. So I try every day just to make it fun. I do hear a lot of, oh, all you do is play in your classroom. And I said, you're right. Yeah, that's all we do is play. And guess what? Scores go up. So again, I have to kind of put it back on Renee because she was the bug in my ear for a long time. And yes, she taught here, so she gets it. But when you do have, somebody mentioned, when you do have a culture and a principal and teachers around you who get it, and you are with those people who get it, it does make your life a lot easier. I am very fortunate to have a principal who gets it and who backs me and who likes to play with my reindeer games. And if you don't, then you have to be that champion. You have to be the strong one to stand up for those kids and know that you are making that difference. Even if you don't see it right away, you're giving them something from your heart. So I think I've maybe covered everything. I'm not sure. Oh, and I am getting my STEM certification after winter break from the Endeavor program. So I will have that to add, and I'm super, super excited to start that one.
That is awesome. And I heard you, and guess what, my friend? There is a teacher grant for $500 that the grant is due on the 30th this month. And if you support, let me know. It's California Credit Union. They offer a grant for current TK through 12 teachers in certain areas of California, but definitely in Southern California. And they do 10 of them twice a year. So there's 20 different grant, kind of slots that they have. So give it a shot. It's a good one. I've known people in Neil got this one actually. Neil got this one in his classroom a couple of years ago. So
that's right. That's awesome. Yeah, I'll look into it.
I can help you if you need any help with it. Let me know.
I know where you are.
Renee, can I interrupt real quick? I'm going to throw one in the chat if that's okay. Here's a link as well. So MEEC, the Mojave Environmental Education Consortium, it does the Antelope Valley as well as Victorville, Hesperia, anyone considered in that Mojave Air Quality District and Antelope Valley. Anyways, they do grants, and I put the link for one. That's for a mini project grant. I think it's also up to $500.
James, is that like environmental based grant? Or
yeah, it is supposed to be projects for the classroom that relate to the environment.
Excellent. I know. I bet I could figure out a way to take STEM and makerspace and whatnot into a project.
Creativity, gets you there.
Absolutely. And it's really, I appreciate too that it was mentioned having leadership support on your campus and how that can make a big difference. I know for sure that can make the difference. Also, if you ever have like a leader on your campus who writes grants, make sure to talk to them and start learning how to do that. It's just a matter of putting it out there and seeing, if you get funding or not. And as somebody who has done it like for many, many years, I started informally. Man, I've been able to get so much for my classroom through other funding sources. So, okay, let's get into now some more of like the nuts and bolts here. Like, why did you become a teacher? And how did you become a STEM teacher? Like, I mean, I know some of you got into some pieces of that so far, but like Karen, you were talking about career technical education and like medical, and like with some of what you're describing, the first thing I wasn't thinking about is I'm going to teach that. And so would you mind starting off a little bit on your story? And I love that you also shared about your mom and the reality that there was jobs, because sometimes that's what it comes down to. Also, maybe share a little bit, did you get a traditional credential program? Like, how did you take that piece too? So would you share a little bit about how did you become a teacher and why was it that you wanted to become a STEM teacher?
Sure. When I was graduating from college, I was moving back to I went to high school in Roseman, so I went to Roseman High School, and then I was moving back here to get married, and I got married right after college, and then started teaching because those were the jobs that were available. I still didn't really know what to do, so I had a degree in life science, a bachelor's degree in life science, and then that was it. And my mom said, "Hey, there's jobs open here. Maybe get started and then see what you can do." So I definitely was passionate about science always. Like everybody was saying, like when like if science is your thing. Everything about science made me excited. And when I was in high school, I had I wasn't exposed. Maybe because of money, like, not having funding for things, we didn't do a lot of hands-on experiments. And when I went to college as a science major, I felt very unprepared. I didn't know, what different tools looked like, or, some of my lab partners were able to do these, lab report. I was like, I don't know how to write that. I'm not sure. I felt super behind, and I was a very motivated student. So it felt weird to be in class and then not know what was going on. And so when I started teaching, I was like, I'm going to make sure my students, don't have that barrier. That was kind of the background. And I told you I had, wanted to be a nurse. I had an interest in healthcare. And so I taught seventh grade science, which is life science. And that was a perfect fit for me because I was passionate about my topic. And I really feel like that's the first thing, to find something that you're passionate about, because if you're passionate about it, then the students get excited too. So that's a big step. And then those first couple of years, I also really focused on having the people that were, had been on my campus, the teacher leaders on my campus, getting advice from them, including my mom, on classroom management. So classroom management, and then like being passionate about the things that I was doing those were super important. I didn't get my teaching credential for a couple of years. I taught under an emergency credential for a while because I wasn't sure if I was going to go in this route or not. And I didn't want to invest money in it, if I was going to do something different. I was kind of undecided. And then I decided like I wanted to have kids. And then I thought, oh, this is perfect because I can be a mom and then do this while the kids are in, like I can teach and the kids can be in school. And this is really like working for me. So then when I finally decided that I was going to stay, I got a single subject in biology. So that was my original credential. As Laura was talking about, like for money, for projects, like teaching science sometimes is difficult when you don't have a budget, because you're like, oh, if I had money to do, I could do all of these things. And so the whole time I was in teaching junior high, and then even when I first started teaching just general biology in high school, I also dealt with the limit and different supplies. But I did find that when you're passionate about something and you're excited and you do a good job with that in your classroom, people will get behind you and figure out ways to give you and get you what you need. So definitely, like, you're showing up and you're excited about something and people want to make that happen for you. So your advice about like, finding the people who write grants, or just saying what your idea is out loud. Hey, I really want to do this. Even if it seems like it can't happen, put your list together. And then, those are the things that make it fabulous. And there's a lot of things you can do, on a shoestring budget, and, and the kids still have fun with it. But yeah, definitely put it out there. So then when I started teaching I started in Southern Kern Unified School District. That's where I taught at Tropico Middle School originally. They had a biology position open at their high school. So it's a unified school district. So I moved over and started teaching biology there. And then I had seen this program, Project Lead the Way, the biomedic program. And I was like, oh my gosh, that is what I want to do. Like, it's combining everything that I've ever wanted together. So I started the program in Rosebud, but it was going to be smaller because they have a small high school there. And I got recruited by Antelope Valley High School District to come over because they wanted to grow at Eastside, their program. So I moved over and I've been there since. And we just have been getting bigger and bigger and bigger there. But when I got there, everyone kept telling me I needed a career technical education credential, that if I could get a CTE credential, there was going to be all of this funding. And I was like, okay, what do you do? I'm ready to get the CTE credential. It turns out that it's a little bit more difficult than, well, when they tell you what it was required, it seems very difficult. It seemed overwhelming, like something I wasn't going to be able to do. You have to have a certain number of industry hours in the industry. So career technical ed, there's different umbrellas. And so one is health science and medical technology. And in order to get funding from there's Perkins funding, there's all kinds of funding strings for career technical education. In order to get funding, you have to be a credentialed teacher in that area. So I'm teaching the class, fine, no problem with my single subject biology degree, but I wasn't able to get funding for things. And every time I asked for something, they were like, if you had a CTE credential, and I kept saying, I want one, like, tell me how to get it, let's do this. So finally, through working with some people up north, in my Project Lead the Way training, I had talked to somebody who said, oh, you can get it through UC Berkeley's extension. Just reach out to them and they'll help you out with getting the CTE credential. So I reached out to them because someone said to me that I needed like 4,000 hours of industry experience. And I was like, well, I'm going to have to quit my job in order to get this industry experience because I've only ever been a teacher. So once I reached out to Berkeley, I had just a meeting with somebody in their program there for career technical education. And they asked me some questions, and it turned out like when I was in college, I was a lab manager and I made all the media for the microbiology lab. And that was enough for industry experience. So when I finally, for like 4 years, I was trying to get a CTE credential and I couldn't get it. When I finally talked to this person, in 2 weeks, I had a preliminary CTE credential in health sciences and medical technology. I just had to apply to UC Berkeley's extension program and then pay for the preliminary. And then I had to clear it within 3 years by taking the methods class, one specifically for career technical education. It was an online class. I did it in 4 weeks. It actually was easy like to do once I had it. So my friends that I'm teaching with, they got theirs too right after me. And one is a liberal studies major, but she is a coach. And so they did it under nutrition, that she's had experience coming up with nutrition plans and things for her athletes. Like they're very flexible in how to get this. And then another one did, when he was in college, he did sports med stuff. And so he didn't even work to get paid for that. He just did it as part of his program in kinesiology. And so then they gave him credit for that. So the CTE credential, once we got it, I don't want to like rub salt in the wound because Laura, I know you're like struggling to get some of these supplies, but that has made a tremendous difference. So, and I think James can tell you, like in our district, we're definitely supported by career technical education. So if I want something, it's not a problem. Sometimes it's like, I can't think of enough things to want. I'm like, okay, like, they're like, people will come in and say, well, what can we help you with? And I'm like, we have so much stuff, I don't even know. So we have a $75,000 anatomage table, which is a virtual autopsy table in our classroom. We have VR and it's like super cool. I don't want to, I feel like I'm bragging about stuff, but it's very exciting for our students to have access to all of these things. I'm teaching my 9th graders how to micropipette. That's something I didn't get to do until I was in college. So I'm circling back to the beginning when I said, I wanted my students to leave high school and feel like whether they're going to college or career, they feel like they have some skills that are going to help them feel confident in whatever it is that they choose.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And I can tell you have more access to resources because the strong workforce funding, I'm guessing, is part of it. I helped to advocate for that many years ago before it came out. I got to go.
Thank you so much. It is
half of getting that money for our state. I was so proud to be part of that group to kind of help in any way to get that moving forward. Here's the problem with it. Laura is in an elementary school. And when it was first written, it was only junior high and high school. Now it's more inclusive in terms of the finances, in terms of how, the different grade levels that can access it. But she's only in a K-8 district, which has less leg room in terms of like, going out for grants and whatnot. So don't ever feel guilty about having the resources needed in order to be the best educator and for those kids to get the best education. We're always so like used to like having, the bare droppings like leftovers. And you know what? Why can't we be a state-of-the-art industry as so many other industries in California are?
Right. So, and the equity factor for our students, we have students that go to school and people are like, where did you do that at? Is that a private school? And we're like, nope, we're a public high, and our kids have these skills. I'm so proud of the things and the work that we're doing. And having those tools has made a huge difference for our students.
I love it. And even just having access to things that you've never seen before. I love that you were talking about how they get access to things that you didn't get access to until college. How exciting. Whether they end up in the field or not, just having access and exposure is so key. Let's
Renee, it's interesting. It's interesting. Not sorry to interrupt you, but Karen, one thing that you did touch on, and yeah, I am only a K-8 district. However, no matter what level you teach at, first of all, be proud of what you have, because that means that you don't have it for you. I mean, yes, you probably have it for yourself because it's fun to have those things. I mean, come on, let's just be honest here. But you got it for the kids. I mean, you got it so that they can then learn and then take that with them and then maybe teach somebody else, or they can become some professional because of something you did. You are that stepping stone, and they're not going to have that unless they have those things. And one thing that I have learned being in a K-8 is that, yeah, we are limited in some ways, but in others, it just means that if you are really passionate, you just have to work a little bit harder. You have to get more creative. You have to be a louder voice in the crowd. And Renee knows I have a loud voice. So you just have to squeak extra hard as that wheel to find the ways to get that funding. And sometimes it's not grants and state or federal. It's not any of that. It's community. Talk to companies. Like here in Santa Clarita, we've got a ton of aerospace, like up in Antelope Valley. There's a ton of aerospace. And I mentioned that to my class the other day. They had no idea that aerospace was so prominent here and just in Valencia. They had no clue. And they're like, oh, that's what I drive by and I see rockets on signage. I'm like, it's because they're probably building rockets in those buildings that you wouldn't even think. So I tell them about these things. And the more you mention what you do and the more you mention what you want to do, the more people seem to kind of come out of the woodwork and say, oh, I have a friend who does that. Oh, my uncle's dog walker's hairdresser does that. Like you would never know who you're connected to until you start talking about it. And it doesn't matter. It could be you're in a TK class and you could be wanting to do some sort of engineering with these kids or some sort of STEM with these kids. Mention it, talk about it. The more you talk about it, the more people know that you are interested in it, that you are trying to bring it to your kids. And then all of a sudden people start realizing, hey, I can help with that. Even if it's something as simple as, well, I've got egg cartons for your egg drop. That's STEM. And okay, I didn't have egg cartons. I didn't have the packaging, but somebody brought it to me. So it's like Karen said, just keep talking about it and keep like telling people how passionate you are. But oh my gosh, Karen, I'm super jealous. I want to come to one of yours.
I love that.
You're all invited anytime. You're all invited. Reach out and let me know. I would love to have you over.
Well, it's interesting that teachers, we bring kids on field trips, but we don't really get to do field trips between what we do and between our different spaces, which is unfortunate because we could learn so much from each other in that, Another thing too is I love what she was just saying about just putting it out there. Please, those of you who are thinking like, I'm a teacher in the future. No, you're here right now. You're a teacher. You're an educator. So, and you just word it different ways. You go into a store, you mention it. You go into a garage sale or any like Goodwill, any places like that, especially if you're looking for resources, tell people because they'll give you things. I know in my kids' school, they recently needed a refrigerator for one of the programs. They couldn't use any funding for it. I put it out to the community and within like about 3 days, we had $1,000 raised to purchase a refrigerator. So, kind of use those social media platforms and whatnot and just be as inventive as you can. James,
I wasn't a credentialed teacher when I started the STEM program here in Castaic. I was just a parent with a passion for it and no credentials, no little initials after my name or anything, and just got the word out and people, droves of things getting dropped off. Oh, I was purging our kids' closet. Here, do you want Legos? Yes, I'll take your Legos. Like all this stuff just started arriving, and then I got my credential.
I love it. I love it. Let's go ahead to James for a little bit and talk about why did you become a teacher and how did you get into STEM education? And you gave us a little bit on this already, but tell us a little bit more.
Sure. So yeah, I touched on a little bit, some of the things that I was seeing and just feeling like it's just going to come across braggy, but feeling like I could do a better job of it in a different way. And so that's what I set out to do when I did it. So one of my biggest choices was it going to be chemistry or biology? Originally, I was going to do chemistry, but when I looked at the way the classes stacked up with prerequisites, it was going to take me a year longer. So I ended up initially getting it in biology. And then we talked about how I added, other authorizations to that. But my goal in that was to bring that different style in. And so I feel like I've been pretty successful in that. When I taught biology, for example, when we would do genetics, my wife is a caterer. Just a real quick aside, she also has a CTE credential and is a teacher in this district. She ran her own catering business for years and was able to use her experience with that as a small business owner to get her CTE credential and just started teaching in our district this year. I just throw that in because it came up. But because I had access to a caterer, I did up my entire classroom as a full-blown wedding. And so we put out all of the decorations. My wife made a wedding cake. We had a chocolate fountain. I mean, the whole 9 yards. And then when the kids came in that day, I randomly made them get married to each other. And I didn't let them pick their spouses. And then they had to, so instead of just, filling in a Punnett square that makes no sense to anybody and has no reason for anything, they would have to determine the traits of their children. And when they finished doing the Punnett squares between them, and then we talked, and we made it pretty complex. We talked about how a lot of things are not just simple as just one gene that determines them. We talked about height and skin color and eye color and some of those things that are not determined by a single gene and what went into that. And the kids had to solve some pretty difficult stuff. And when they were done and they drew a picture of their baby with all of the traits that it had, then they got to have the prizes where they actually got to go eat from the chocolate fountain. They got to cut the cake, and like all of the different kids would come up and take turns cutting the cake, and we'd take pictures, and we just really made it a different experience for the kids. And that was, what I envisioned going in. Was it just killed me to see the apathy in some of the students. And I was in boot camp, so it was some of the most struggling students, but knowing that if you can defeat that apathy, you can teach any kid. And so that was what I set out to do. Was we're gonna kill that apathy and make them want to learn, because we can take them anywhere they're at and help them learn if we can defeat that. And so, and I've strove to do that from there. I mean, I won't out her, but there's a parent in this right now in the chat whose daughter just went to the Society of Experimental Test Pilots with our academy, like literally just this last Friday, and they were able to be in a live conference with all of the test pilots in the country and be there with them and see all of the things that they were doing and hear all of those things. I was able to take 250 kids to Disneyland last week, but it wasn't just a trip to Disneyland. They were looking at, okay, what went into the design of putting the storytelling together with the animatronics and the making it. And so now we're going to recreate that in class when we do our own on-site maker fair this year. And so the kids will use microcontrollers, Arduinos, things like that, and they will create their own animatronics, and we'll do a community showcase for that. In the middle school, one of the projects that I've done with the kids, and then we'll be doing with the high school as well. Can I show you? Is that okay if I put it in? So this is my guitar that I made. It's a full-blown electric guitar, but my kids are making them too. This is one of my students' guitars, right? And so they take just raw lumber, but we make that project. They do everything. I mean, everything. They plane it, they sand it, they cut it, but they do all of the design for the CNC router. They do the 3D digital design, but we get to use all of the tools. So the CNC tools are our CNC lasers. We make parts that we cut out. They also do like the soldering, all of the electronics, like literally every single thing they do themselves. But that was what I envisioned when I wanted to come in, was what can I give these kids that will make them interested in it? And it wasn't just, it's in the classroom. Sometimes it's simple. Sometimes it's, here we go. Rather than drawing diagrams of atoms, we made them out of clay, right? So it's little stuff and the big stuff. I don't want everyone to think that it's just the big ends, but we have the cool stuff. We have a water jet that is industry level. It was like $90,000. But we have clay too, that we're making stuff out of. But my kids, I try to have them get their hands dirty every day. I try to give them tons of experiences outside of class. Same parent in here. I took a group of kids to Ohio, and they got to go to a drone racing conference out there, and we spent a week out there. Pre-pandemic, pandemic killed it, but I took teams for 7 years. I took teams to Australia, and we competed in an international drone competition against teams from everywhere: China, New Zealand, different places in Europe, other teams in the US, South American teams, and we won. We didn't just go, we won 4 out of the last 5 years that it was done pre-pandemic from all over the world. And so that was why I went into it. I looked at some of the experiences that kids were having, and I just went, you know what, we can do more than that. If you're falling asleep in science or your electives, then we probably can do better than that. And so that was what I set out to do when I came into it.
Oh, James, I got to tell you, I've my kids are at a school that's a newer school, but it's hard when you've got a child who's supposed to be on an engineering pathway and they go to a school or a district where it's not available. And
Yeah.
we've got to figure out something in education where we open up borders and schools get to have specialties, because I could drive to your campus. Do you know what I mean? It's not that far. And
Yeah.
it's unfortunate that there'd be so many different walls before that could kind of happen. And yet I'm working with or living with a child who's just excelling in a very different way. And so I appreciate you sharing all that. But a thing that I think is so important here for everybody who's on right now, before you agree to teach or work for anybody, go check out the culture. Don't ever be so desperate for the job that you're just looking at the job. You look at the career and maybe you get in one spot in the district and then you move to where you want to be eventually, but don't ever shortchange yourself. Laura, let's come to you now to talk a little bit about the benefits of teaching.
The benefits of teaching. Obviously, it's for the money. We all know that. We're all rolling in it, right? I know, okay, so I had to make everybody laugh. No, the benefits of teaching. I think, honestly, every person has a different benefit of teaching. That's our why. And it gets hard. There are times when I don't see a benefit. And I'll be honest with that. When I walk in my class and at the end of the day, I walk out and my shoulders are up to here and I'm just defeated and I'm pulling my hair out and I've got one more thing added to my plate. And I'm just thinking, no, I can't do this anymore. I don't see a benefit right now. And then the next day I'll walk in and a student will tell me, Ms. Frenzel, what you were saying yesterday about, like right now we're talking about the circulatory system. I was at baseball practice and my heart rate got going. And so I took my pulse and I realized, and I multiplied it by 2 because I only had 30 seconds. And just as he's talking to me, I'm thinking, boom, that's my why. That's it. And it was like my shoulders dropped and my hair, I wasn't pulling it out anymore. And it's these little moments that we live for. And you can strive for them all you want. They're going to come naturally. It's all organic. They're going to happen. And then you're just going to go, that's it, reset. And all the tough, bad things that are coming at you, all the things that your district might be piling on you are just going to kind of not melt away, but they're going to get a lot easier to accept. And that's why I do it. Like I said, I've only been teaching full-time credential. This is only my 2nd year. And I can't imagine a more fulfilling, a more worthwhile profession to be in because of all the obstacles, because of all the things that get piled on us. I'm one of those people where I don't really have much of an off switch. I have kind of just a mute button. And I like to keep going. I like to keep finding out. If somebody tells me you have no money for something, I'm going to say, cool. And I'm going to go do it anyway. And I'm going to find a bigger, badder way to do it with no money. And then kind of so I can look at the back and go, see, told you, and then move on to the next project. But you have to just believe in yourself, know your worth, know that no matter what gets thrown at you, you are doing this for the right reasons. You are in this because you want to be in this. I didn't grow up thinking I would be a teacher. I literally my whole life thought I was going to be a lawyer. And so to now be a teacher, I can't imagine anything else. I can't imagine being anywhere else. And I'm very lucky that I have the culture at my school that I do. Renee knows my school very well. And I am very lucky that I have a supportive principal. It really does make a difference. I'm lucky that I have coworkers that are excited about teaching just like I am. And I'm lucky that I have peers that I can go to. Again, I'm the new kid, I'm green. And again, I'm 49 years old, so I shouldn't be. I should be 20 years into this, and I'm not. So to still be able to go into classrooms and say, hey, how did you guys tackle this problem? Or I know you had this student. Can you give me any insight as to what I might be dealing with? Or even a lesson, like how did you teach vocabulary when you were teaching 6th grade 5 years ago? You just have to keep moving. Just be a shark. just don't stop swimming, just keep moving, be Dory, just keep swimming. But the reason you do it is going to be personal. It's going to be different for everybody. For me, I do it because I'm in my classroom right now, Zooming, because I thought, okay, there's less distraction, no noise, no dogs barking. But I walked in here on a Saturday morning and still got that feeling, still had all the feels, still was like, hello, classroom, I'm happy to be here. It still puts a smile on my face to walk in that door every single day. No matter what I might be facing, I still get that smile every single day because I know, all right, if I messed it up the day before, if kids were not getting it, if I had run a lesson for 30 minutes that should have taken me 10, I still have a chance to redo it. I still have a moment with these kids where I can try as hard as I can to make a difference. Always fight to find your why, even if it is the smallest reason. Always find your why, especially when they throw more obstacles at you. That has been my biggest saving grace is, okay, you just told me I have to now do these 2 things for the next year. I have to take all these different tests. I have to, add on all these different things. Half my class is getting pulled out for intervention or counseling or something. And now you want me to add in 5 more IEP meetings and 3 more 504 meetings and then just teach. And we're not going to give you any extra money for it. Okay, so you nod and smile and you walk away, but you are here for a reason. You chose to do this. Nobody forced you into it. I mean, the hoops you have to go through to be a teacher are numerous, and we know that. So I guess in my very long-winded way, just being a teacher is something that, again, I never thought I would do, and I can't imagine doing anything else.
Excellent. I appreciate all your reflection there. Let's go ahead and go over to Karen for a little bit to talk about your ideas on the benefits of teaching.
So Laura said a lot of them. I have similar experiences with my students. So everything that I do is definitely driven by how it helps kids or works for kids. And I think if you keep that, in the forefront of your mind, then it's a pretty great job. I am excited still every day. So 25 years in, there was a time earlier on in my career where I was like, am I going to be able to do that? I liked doing it every day, but I was like, am I going to be able to teach the same thing 5 times a day for is there a limit to how? And even now I'm like, hey, I've been doing it for 25 years. Is there going to be a day that I'm going to go in and be like, oh, I guess this is it. This is going to be the day that I'm done with this. But I haven't found it, you guys. So my students, right now, this is my eighth year at Eastside and 8th year teaching this Principles of Biomedical Science class at Eastside. I did it 1 year in Rosemond, but I love the curriculum. The curriculum's changed. I still love it. And the kids are different every single year. And just when I think it's kind of like if you're a parent and you have kids, just when you think you have it under control, something comes up and changes, and then you go, and it's always super interesting. But I love just seeing how excited the kids get doing things. So when we do our Project Lead the Way is a project-based learning curriculum. The kids taking my classes, again, it's called Principles of Biomedical Science, but they get biology credit for taking it. Where I used to teach, let's say genetics, and we would do the Punnett squares and we go through the worksheets. The kids might not have any clue, how that connected to the real world. Now, this curriculum, thank goodness, there's somebody who wrote this with this idea. So I did not make this myself, but they basically teach these same concepts, but through a story about a patient. And just having that switch of thinking about something from a patient perspective, the kids are so bought in. So I'm excited about it. They're excited about it. I can't get enough of, seeing kids. We did electrophoresis. We ran gels in my class and did DNA we saw like whose blood, was at the crime scene. So we're doing a forensics unit now. We did blood spatter experiments to see where the person was bleeding from. And the kids are doing everything. It's hands-on, but they're still learning. They're learning how to measure things. And I think it's so great when the kids don't even realize that they learned something, when they say like, oh, are we playing? Like Laura said earlier today, like they're like, you're playing, but you're also learning so much. And the engagement has been so great. So I just love seeing kids get excited about things. And then as the years have gone on, just hearing back from students saying, we have a student that just graduated from our program, and she's at is Davis, and said that her professor was like, where did you go to high school? How do you know how to do all of these things? My students are normally struggling with this. And she was like, oh, I was in this program. And they were like, they have that at a regular school. And then we have another student who's at Channel Islands and applied for a lab position. And when they asked, they said, normally we don't hire freshmen for this, but then he talked about his experiences in the lab and all the skills that he had. They were like, we're going to hire you for this. So the kids are getting these positions and they're just going in feeling more confident. And that's what drives me every day, is just hearing those stories. But even if I didn't hear them, I'm having one on every single day. The kids, you just see it, happening. And kids are really fabulous. I love my time with them.
To me, kids are like this constant serotonin ding. Like I can be in the worst space and I walk into anything with kids and you'd think it's like if I'm like in a bad mind space, I'd be like negative. Oh no, I feed off their energy so much and it can completely reframe my day. And so I appreciate you saying that because, um, it's going to sound cheesy, but like children are really just so like priceless and just wonderful, and teenagers. And we're so lucky we get to be involved in their like development. So I appreciate your reflections on that. James, let's come over to you for a little bit on some just your thoughts on the benefits of teaching.
I agree with the things that have been said, but I'm going to approach this in a slightly different way because I think it's really important that we get some information out there as we're trying to increase the number of people wanting to go into education. I think that there's a misnomer out there that, teachers don't get paid and that they're not compensated and things like that. And I'm just going to invite people, pick some of the teachers that you like and go to Transparent California and look them up. They absolutely do get paid. And look, I love spending the time with the kids, and that's absolutely why I went into this, but we do get paid. I get paid extremely well, and I still have a lot of time off. Last summer I took my daughter and went with my wife and daughter. We went to England and Scotland, and we had 2 weeks, and it was during the summer. I didn't have to take any time off. I didn't feel rushed to get back. I missed my flight home. It wasn't a big deal. I just caught the next one. It was great. So when we joke about like, and Laura, I'm not attacking you. It was a good joke. But when we joke about the pay, going into for the pay, you know what? It is important to that. When you're picking a profession, you want to make sure that you can pay your bills, right? And as a child growing up, there were 8 kids in my family. My dad had a job as often as he didn't. He very rarely had benefits. And I wanted to go into a profession that I knew was going to be stable. Regardless of what the economy did, I was going to have a job. I might not be rich, but I was going to be comfortable and I was going to have a job. I wanted to know that I was going to have benefits. I broke my wrist when I was a kid, and I didn't go to the doctor for 2 weeks until after it had happened, and the pain just didn't go away because I didn't have insurance and my family couldn't afford for me to go. In college, I had to get so much work done on my teeth because I didn't have access to dental care when I was a kid. And occasionally, right? But when I did, we would just slam it all in and then max it out while we had the insurance until I didn't again. And so I think it's really important that we share that. Like, absolutely, all of us go into you're going to leave teaching if you don't love kids. That's absolutely a part of it. But you got to get paid, right? And so my wife just started working this year. This is my 18th year, but we lived just fine on a single income from me teaching for the first 17 years. My kids did, I own a home over near AVC. I've done wonderful vacations with my family. I've had benefits that cover myself and my kids for our whole lives. And I think all of those things are really important. I have the same schedule as all of my kids. So when I'm off for winter break, they're off for winter break. Our spring breaks usually match up. One of my children goes to SOAR and theirs matches ABC, which doesn't match the high school calendars, but that's okay. They mostly match up, but those things are all really important because I know it's not everybody and it's not a requirement, but most of the people that I meet in teaching have families too. And so being able to match up when your time off with their time off is a great benefit. And it's one that I think can go understated. You know, I'm a coordinator for an engineering academy. And one of the assignments that we do in that is we have the kids look up starting pay and how much schooling that takes and all of those programs and things. And when kids do that, without a doubt, because of what we've all heard, they all say to me like, oh, Mr. Stockdale, you know, this starts at this, like, well, don't you wish? And I'm like, I made way more than that. And I tell the kids that, not to brag, but I tell them because if we keep telling people that education pays nothing, no one's ever going to go into education. And so I am one of the VPs in our Teachers Association for the high school district, and I meet with members all the time to go over retirement benefits and things like that. One of my good friends and co-coordinators in my academy just retired this last June. She taught for 34 years, had a great career, and her retirement pay at that point was about 90% of what she made in her highest year of teaching. Well, 90% of that, but they don't take CalSTRS out of it anymore. So if you look at the bottom line net, her bottom line check is about 95% of what it was. It barely dropped at all. And she keeps her health benefits until she's 65 and then switches over to the other as well. I think it's really, really important that we let people know that there are some good opportunities there. Now, does that mean that we're not going into negotiations and still trying to get it better? And of course we are. Our association just got a 7% on salary raise that we're going to be voting on, 3% off, so 10% package overall. Our extra duty hours are $50 an hour, which is great in my opinion. And so if you're willing to do Saturday school, like there were teachers here today doing, we have online professional development that we can do 6 hours a month. That's an extra car payment a month if you choose to do it. So I just share all of that to say that I think the other two covered really well their why, right? But this other piece is important because we do need to pay our bills. So I just wanted to kind of take it from a different angle. Not that my why is not for the kids, because it is, but we need to be compensated as well. And I feel like we're getting there. I really feel like we're getting there.
James, I appreciate you bringing that up. Actually, I taught the intro to teaching class at College of the Canyons for 24 semesters. And I included a full day where we brought in every single neighboring district salary schedule, taught them how to do the schedule, and taught them how to compare. So that way they realized if they taught in one district, like 10 minutes away, they could make $7,000 more for the same exact job. But I also knew, like, for that 7 minutes away, there was 14 schools in that district. So best case was 7 minutes away. And as somebody who had commuted, I didn't want to commute. So, but you can make informed decisions. Another
Right.
thing too, I saw in the chat people saying, how do you maximize this? This isn't always the answer, but I want to share something. With the salary schedule in TK through 12, you get paid for every unit you have post-baccalaureate. That's important to know because that bachelor's degree, we're working so hard for that bachelor's degree. Bachelor's degree is assumed and you get paid for every unit beyond the bachelor's degree. So I don't want to say anything negative about like integrated programs and things like that, but as you're making decisions, you need to ask them how many units are considered bachelor's degree and how many units are post-bac, and then look and see, because the more post-baccalaureate units you get, the more you go across the scale. One of the ways that I maximized my post-bac units was when I got my credential, I joined a credential/master's degree program. So when I stepped into the classroom as a kindergarten teacher, actually fourth grade was my first year, I already had a master's degree, which brought me to almost the very end of the scale. I did a little more classes. By my second year of teaching, I was paid the maximum of what I could possibly be paid. And I will tell you, I recently did some grant reviews for the state of California. There are teachers in California right now, teachers, not administrators, making $120, $130 a year. So we're talking 6 digits, okay? So there is money there. I used to tell my students in intro to teaching when it came to the salary schedule, if your strategic about getting yourself across there as soon as you can, that literally right there is like a $600, $700 difference every single month. I used to say that's the difference between you driving like a, an old Honda or buying a brand new Audi. You're never going to have a Bentley, don't get me wrong. Like, but you can have like a really, really nice car. You can have really, really nice things if you're strategic. You can take summers off, or you could choose to do other gigs during summer too, and even add an additional income for your family. Lupe just asked too, does the pay work the same for early childhood education? It currently does not, Lupe, but there's a brand new credential that's coming in probably next month. It's going to officially be voted in. It's called the ECE PK3 credential. It's a specialist credential that will help you to teach transitional kindergarten up to third grade. You will absolutely be on the pay scale with the other TK through 12 teachers. And this is going to be one credential that's going to literally, for many of our early childhood providers, it's going to more than probably double the amount of money that they're making right now as educators. So will there be some other requirements for them? Yes, but there's also going to be pathways to get there. So I know we're coming up, oh my gosh, only 9 minutes left together. But before we wrap for today, I want you all to reflect on, what advice do you have for the next generation of teachers, for the future future teachers? James, let's go back to you, and then we'll go to Karen, and then we'll go to Laura to wrap us up for today.
I think for the new teacher, the first thing I would say is, don't feel like you have to do everything at once. The first couple years are so overwhelming, and you go, oh my gosh, I've got to do, oh my gosh, the name just escaped me.
Induction.
Yes, thank you. I've got to do this. That's exactly it. I've got to do this induction program, and then I've got to, and there's acronyms everywhere. Like, I'm getting some emails about a PPG, and I don't even know what a PPG is, and now I've got to, and I'm being asked to do all of these, to be this club advisor, and how do I feel about coaching, and I've just got all of the things, and it's extremely overwhelming. And then you have this vision of your head that you're going to walk in, and you're going to be teaching, and everyone's going to be sitting there listening, and then they're bouncing off the walls, and you haven't figured out what classroom management works for you yet. I think that my advice would be, just, you'll get there. The burnout rate is extremely high in the first few years, and then it comes way down. And the reason for that is because you, if you can survive those first few years, you start to find that life-work balance. And I would just say, it's going to come. You don't have to solve all the world's problems at once, not in your first year. You just have to survive your first year. You can solve the world's problems later, but don't be afraid to say no. Especially in your first couple of years. You don't have to coach. You don't have to be the club advisor. You don't have to do all the things. You'll fit that in later. Once you've got your lessons written and you're not worried about getting tenure and all of the things, those things will come later. So I think that would be my wisdom.
I love it. Thank you so much. You absolutely are treading water the first year, no matter what. Whenever I always used to tell my students, if you could avoid it, don't get married, don't have a baby, don't go through no divorces, like nothing major, because you're going to be so in your work that the rest of life just has to try and stay as stable as possible. Of course, the person who ran teacher prep with me at Canyons for 6 years got married the weekend before she started her first teaching career. She's like, I'm going against everything I learned from you. But guess what? She's in year 4 now, and she's thriving. So that's all we're hoping for. Karen, let's come to you. Some advice for future educators, for the next generation of teachers.
I think I've said it like a couple of times because I just think it's so important, but do what you're passionate about. So, and it doesn't even have to always be in your subject area, but find a way to do what makes you happy while you're at work. So I like to bake. And so I looked for a way to do baking with students, like an after school thing. And sometimes we offer it, sometimes we don't, but those kind of things, taking care of yourself. Obviously, if you can't take care of yourself, then you're not going to be there for the student. So finding that work-life balance, that's difficult for me, even still 25 years in. I like to say yes, way to, we have ovens in this bedroom. So after school, sometimes we do like little things in the bedrooms. There's ovens. Yeah. So the things that I love in my everyday life, I try to bring that in, and that seems to really help. I will say that my mom was teaching 6th grade at my school when I first started teaching, and after the first couple of weeks, I was like, oh gosh, this is why it took me a while to get my credential, because I was like, I don't think I'm going to be able to handle this. I was only 22, and it was a lot. And so my mom said to me, Karen, you're going to stay here for 2 years. She's like, you have to, you're locking it in right now. You're going to be here for 2 years. At the end of the 2nd year, if you still feel this way, then feel free to move on and do whatever. But she encouraged me to stay for those 2 years. And by the end of the 2 years, I was like, oh, okay, I can see like the benefits of these things. So give it some time. Also, it's not great to say yes to everything, but say yes to some things that might be outside of your comfort zone. So I've found a lot of super fun stuff in areas where I just didn't even realize that was going to be good for me. My student teaching experience was in the summer. There was only for high school, because I already got student teaching. I was teaching in my own class for 3 years before I had to do student teaching. And so my student teaching experience was in the summer, and the only summer school that was available for high school was the juvenile detention center for the camps. So I did my student teaching in the camps, which was so scary to me. I was like, I don't know if this is it was such a fabulous experience. I loved it so much. And I think that actually helps me so much in my work now. I bring that to, my work with me every day. So you never know what you might be exposed to. And if you don't like it, then pick something different, but do what you love, be passionate about it. Remember, kids are they're so excited to do things, and don't get caught up in teaching them about, they have to know what a protein is. They're going to learn it. But let's do it, in a way that's fun and, to make your place safe and exciting and, a place for them to come back to. So I think those are my biggest things.
I love it. I love it. We're going to go to Laura, but before we do, I just want to mention that I'm putting in a little golden nugget into the chat that I have not shared with anybody yet at this conference. Somebody asked about the new ECE credential. Teach for the Bay is actually later this week on, I think it's Thursday and Friday, and it's a similar conference. And I know for certain that there is a breakout session that's specifically focusing on the new early childhood education credential. And I know it because I'm giving the session with the Commission on Teacher Credentialing. And so we're preparing for it right now. So I'll make sure that I share the link to the conference with everybody who's registered. But if everybody's liking the feeling of Teach for Antelope Valley, we have something coming up later this week that we're all invited to join. So I'll make sure I share all the resources later so everybody's got it officially. And it's a free virtual, same kind of situation. You pop into what's relevant for you and what works for your schedule. So Laura, we're at 2 more minutes till we wrap up. Can you share with us and help to wrap, what are the benefits of teaching? Sorry, I just said the wrong thing. What is your advice for future teachers?
Okay, so I will wrap this real fast, only because most of what I was going to say has already been said, and I echo my peers here. But I will add, it's never too late. Okay, I speak that with wholehearted. It's never too late. Don't be afraid to try things, like Karen was saying. Don't ever be. If something goes bad, all right, then you failed. And what does fail stand for? It's your first attempt in learning. So learn from it, re-engineer, redo it, try it again. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to, like they said, say no. However, I will say, as a second year, I'm in induction right now. So saying no, I don't get many opportunities to say no because I am the low man. And so somebody's got to hold up that totem pole, is the way I see it. And if I step away, then the totem pole falls and all my peers collapse. So I have learned, and I don't necessarily get to say no, but I do get to say, hey, can I see what you're doing, where you're putting everybody for adjunct duties? And is there anything that you think I'd be working on? And my principal was like, oh, well, I do need a gate lead. And I had never thought I'd be a gate lead, and here I am. So don't, well, necessarily don't say yes or no, but maybe just say, hey, I was thinking about, and put that bug in somebody's ear. That's the way I've gone about it. I can speak from an induction standpoint because I am in year 2 of induction. It's a lot, but those of you who have not taken RECA or your Cal TPAs, those are free right now. So it's wholly huge because those are expensive. Find your resources. LAUSD is giving free tutorials and all sorts of really cool seminars and things to pass those things for those of us that are in them, which is amazing that they're doing this for us. So find the avenues, talk to people, never be afraid to ask questions. There's always somebody that will help you, always somebody that will share, but just when times get really tough and you're in your first couple of years and you feel like you've had it, but just remember that you have it. You're good. You can get through it. There is that light at the end of the tunnel. This is that you will get that moment. You will find your why over and over and over again. And then 25 years later, you'll go, oh yeah, I remember that time that it just really, really was bad and I really wanted to quit and I didn't. And here you are. So just, be Dory, keep swimming.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for being here today and for sharing with us. I also saw Karen in the chat was like, hey, if anybody needs observation hours, I mean, that's one of the most important things. When you're here, you're not just learning, but you're also networking. I know people were asking for our email addresses. We are absolutely here to be a resource for you. And we want to help you along this journey because we know it's not always an easy one, but you're not alone. There's a whole family that's excited to work with you. So thank you so much to James and Laura and Karen for being with us today and for talking with us. We're getting ready for breakout session number 5, everybody. We've got 2 more to go. And so breakout session number 5, first option is how to become a paraeducator. Second option is how to become a teacher. And that's looking specifically at both your multiple subject and single subject credentials. So hope to see everybody in the next session. Thank you so much to our panelists for being here. And the 3 of you have a good rest of the day. And everybody else, I'll see you in the next session in just a few minutes. Take care, everybody.